of Without Walls. She didn't just inherit the pulpit, she inherited every financial decision that had been made under both their names. The math caught up fast. In January 2011, Paula White took on a second title, becoming senior pastor of the church's second campus, Without Walls Central Church in Lakeland, Florida, meaning she was now solely responsible for both locations of a ministry already buried in debt. It didn't last. In August 2011, the Lakeland campus had its electricity shut off after the church failed to pay more than $50,000 in utility bills. The church had accumulated roughly $29 million in debt it could not service. Assets were sold. The ministry. By June 2012, Randy White had returned to lead the Tampa campus on his own, picking up the pieces of a church that, just a few years earlier, had been one of the largest in America. The empire that took 2 decades to build had come apart in about 5 years. Financial collapse was unfolding. A personal scandal hit at the same time. In the summer of 2010, the National Enquirer published photos of Paula White and televangelist Benny Hinn holding hands as they left a hotel in Rome. Hinn was still legally married to his wife Suzanne at the time, though she had filed for divorce earlier that year. Both White and Hinn denied any romantic relationship. White called the allegations categorically false, insisting the two were never alone and were in the constant company of staff and other associates. Hinn issued his own denial, calling the claims lies. Then, in February 2011, Hinn's book publisher, Strang Communications, filed a $250,000 lawsuit against him, alleging that Hinn had violated the morality clause in his book contract. According to the lawsuit, Hinn had privately acknowledged to the publisher, back in August 2010, his inappropriate relationship with White. The investigation already reeling from a divorce and a Senate investigation, watching their...
Oh boy, I just realized I wasn't sharing my screen, so I don't know what the first part of this looks like. But Christianity and politics go hand in hand. They both are in charge of people's lives, all in people's business, all telling people what to do, and always acting like the judge and jury and executioner, makes a lot of money off of people suffering, and a profound effect on people's lives and children's lives. You know, people are born, right? They're born babies. We teach our kids to be hateful. We teach our kids to be a certain religion. Our kids are a product of who we are. Our kids learn from what they see, not always what they hear, but what they see. And if they see parents treating other people like dirt, what's the chances of them doing the same?
Pastor's name attached to an infidelity scandal involving one of the most famous faith healers in the world was one more reason to walk away. In 2011, with Without Walls in bankruptcy, Paula White took over as senior pastor of New Destiny Christian Center in Apopka, Florida. She was stepping into a church already dealing with its own tragedy. Its founder, Zachary Timms, had died the previous year of a cocaine and heroin overdose. At the time White took over, New Destiny had roughly 8,000 members. It should have been a fresh start. It wasn't. By 2017, membership had collapsed to fewer than 500, a loss of more than 90% in 6 years. In 2019, White handed the pulpit to her son, Bradley Knight, then serving as associate pastor, and the church was rebranded City of Destiny. White remained involved as a teaching and overseeing pastor rather than a full-time leader. The rebrand didn't stop the bleeding. The church would go on to change its name again, becoming Story Life Church, with the sanctuary continuing to empty out. Recent footage shows congregants now seated around tables rather than in rows of chairs, with the band moved down to ground level because the stage built for thousands is too large for the room's remaining crowd. 2 churches, 2 collapses, same pastor. In early 2015, Paula White married her 3rd husband, Jonathan Cain, keyboardist of the rock band Journey, also his 3rd marriage. Months later, the two preached together at White's church on the subject of marital intimacy. Cain told the congregation, with teenagers reportedly present, that wives should educate themselves on their husband's sensual needs, and that if necessary, they should watch porn together to learn how. Paula White laughed on camera as her husband made the comments, then attempted to walk it back, saying they weren't advocating for anyone to get addicted to porn, just to educate themselves. The clip resurfaced repeatedly in the years that followed, including in 2025 when it was recirculated amid criticism of her role in the Trump administration's faith office. White's proximity to Donald Trump, she says they met when he caught one of her sermons on television at Mar-a-Lago, turned her into a national and international figure. She prayed at his 2017 inauguration and later served as a special advisor in the White House Office of Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships. That visibility didn't calm the controversies. It multiplied them. In January 2020, video surfaced of White praying during a sermon for all satanic pregnancies to miscarry right now. The clip went viral, drawing condemnation from clergy across denominations, including Jesuit priest James Martin, who said no pregnancy should ever be called satanic and that no one should pray for a miscarriage. White said her words were taken out of context for political gain and that she was referencing a Bible verse about spiritual warfare, not literal pregnancies. The explanation didn't stop the clip from becoming one of the most mocked moments of her public career. Then, in November 2020, days after the presidential election, White delivered a prayer, captured on video and viewed millions of times, in which she spoke in tongues and called for angelic reinforcement from Africa and South America to overturn the election results in Trump's favor. The prayer was widely mocked, including by African commentators and journalists who called out the racial framing of African and South American angels being dispatched to fix an American election.
For angels are being released right now. Angels are being dispatched right now. For angels have even been dispatched from Africa right now. Africa right now. Africa right now. From Africa right now. They're coming here. They're coming here.
In May 2023, speaking at the Universal Peace Federation's Peace Summit in South Korea, White told the audience she had personally worked with Nelson Mandela to help abolish apartheid in South Africa, describing advocacy work she said began after she built an AIDS home in Pretoria in the 1980s. The Nelson Mandela Foundation, which maintains the official archive of Mandela's life and work, said it had no record of any involvement by White whatsoever. We have searched our holdings and do not find anything on Paula White.
Okay. All right. Not for her.
Of the war, describing superiors who were seeing the conflict as a prophecy or something like that. And this isn't just happening in the military.
It'll all play out in God's perfect.
They lie. Why do people have to lie so much? Why do we have to have leaders that make up stuff, that lie? We, everyday people, we don't deserve honesty. We don't deserve a drug-free, sexually abused, criminal world. I mean, I know that's a lot to fathom, but why we can't work towards that for real and stop trying to put these people, our lives in these people's hands? Why are we continuing to let the people that make the problems solve the problems? Now, what is this? The American Christian Death Cult? What is that?
When you mess with the bull, you get the horns.
Is that too soon? I'm sorry. Maybe you shouldn't kill Jews, stupid Muslims.
It's all really sad. I like that.
So funny.
I like that.
If you as a gay person would go to Gaza, they'd throw you off of tall buildings, right? Now they don't have any tall buildings left, so I don't...
Oh, that's funny.
When you mess with the bull, you get the horns.
Is that too soon? I'm sorry. Maybe you shouldn't kill Jews, stupid Muslims.
He's all really sad. I like that.
Now, these are the kind of people that
Where
you
was that?
want.
All right,
Yo,
now
here-
it seems like an appropriate time to make this video, considering the release of Dune Part 3 trailer. It seems like for years, modern American wars have been covered in a moral language, that being battles fought for freedom or justice or civilization, quote unquote. However, in recent years, there's been a subset of American Christian culture that has taken this a bit further by transforming war from a tragic necessity into some form of sacred mission.
Are you looking forward to Armageddon?
I definitely am.
So you're looking forward to Armageddon?
Looking forward to Armageddon and looking forward to the cleansing of the earth.
And what will happen is Israel and the Western world, in order to save our type of civilization, have got to fight the Muslim. And if we don't take out Iran one way or another, if we move out of Iraq, the Muslims are going to take over and they're going to follow us here.
Now, recently, of course, as the United States joined Israel in a new conflict with Iran, there have been actual reports emerging of military commanders encouraging troops to see the war as, quote, all part of God's divine plan. One U.S. Army non-commissioned officer recounted that his commander explicitly cited the Bible's book of Revelation, invoking Armageddon and the imminent return of Jesus Christ to cast the Iran war in prophetic terms. And this isn't just an isolated incident. According to the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, more than 200 service members across all branches have filed complaints in the first week of the war, describing superiors who were seeing the conflict as a potential apocalyptic prophecy or something like that. And this isn't just happening in the military.
It'll all play out in God's perfect timing. But I can say this, when we see this kind of activity in that part of the world, it reminds me of the words of Jesus, who said, when you see these things begin to happen, look up, because your redemption is drawing near. As far as I can see, the next event on the prophetic calendar will be the rapture of the church. But what we should be doing right now is pray for this whole campaign to come to a successful end. Pray for our military. Pray that God gives wisdom to our president and his cabinet.
Now, this is all a process that has been growing and has been active in the United States for a long time. We've talked about American Christian nationalist rhetoric. We didn't really get into how they sacralize modern conflict. However, all this has been very apparent in this explicit framing of this holy war, especially in today's political and military culture. The United States has had a long history of wrapping its wars in moral and religious narratives as American political leaders.
And they talk about jihad, and they talk about the Muslim jihad war, and they just as bad. See, we've yet to have somebody who wants to tell the truth, so people can make better and sound decisions based on what's real.
And institutions frequently portray American military violence as a force of higher virtues, that being redemption, rescue, order, or freedom. During World War II and the Cold War, we began to see United States and interventions exist undertones. In 1954, amidst the Cold War against, quote, godless communism, the phrase "under God" was inserted into the Pledge of Allegiance, and Congress adopted "In God We Trust" as the national motto in 1956, which were symbolic moves to distinguish the United States from atheistic Soviet communism. President Ronald Reagan sharpened this language in 1983 when he denounced the Soviet Union as a, quote, evil empire, casting this whole geopolitical struggle as a battle of good versus evil, and even aligning American aims with God's purposes.
Association of Evangelicals community from coast to coast in our great land deeply appreciates and values his love for the truth of the Bible and his commitment to its great moral values. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
I would rather see my little girls die now, still believing in God, than have them grow up under communism and one day die no longer believing in God.
Wow! That is a hell of a statement. Your kids, my kids, I want my kids to live whether they are communists or fascists or okay. Okay, I know. They deeply believe that their God is the only God, is the true God, the only God, the rest are false gods, and their God is going to take them to heaven, and they're going to inherit the earth. But he literally said he'd rather his kids die. So that means all kids. Don't you think those Indians that when your people came over felt the same way? When you came over this land and took it over, brought your fascist ideas, your dictatorship, I'm sure when you went over there in Africa and stole those people, that they killed their kids instead of coming into slavery and slave for your lazy asses. I'm sure they felt the same way. But it doesn't nothing they can do about it. But it got him elected, and it got him to be president, and it got him the ability to continue the reign of terror all over this world. Because what happened was they gave it the green light for these other countries to bomb other countries.
I urge you to beware the temptation of pride, the temptation of blithely declaring yourselves above it all and label both sides equally at fault, to ignore the facts of history and the aggressive impulses of an evil empire, to simply call the arms race a giant misunderstanding, and thereby remove yourself from the struggle between right and wrong and good and evil.
Even in the Vietnam War, American officials spoke of defending the, quote, free world from godless communism. President Lyndon B. Johnson invoked duty and providence in justifying escalation. Prominent evangelist Billy Graham was also an ardent supporter of U.S. intervention in Vietnam, repeatedly describing communism as fundamentally opposed to Christianity and freedom, and even encouraging American leaders to stay the course.
Only a couple of years ago, these young men would have been embarrassed to tell what patriotism meant to them, how much they loved their homes, their God, their country. Now they daily risk their lives for their beliefs. This vast cross-section of America, it's young, tired, gallant fighting men. This is not only the face of America, this is the heart of America. They will return, most of them.
It's here we begin to
I
see
know that
American
voice.
wars being
Put
sold
my
as
name on it.
necessary acts of virtue, whether it's being justified through administering freedom or administering God.
I know that voice.
And we see even more of this after the September 11th, 2001 attacks, as President George W. Bush spoke of a global fight for freedom against, quote, an axis of evil. And although Bush did not say America was at war with Islam, some U.S. military and political figures cast the war on terror in, frankly, spiritual terms. Lieutenant General William Jerry Boykin, a Defense Department official, publicly described the post 9/11 conflict as a confrontation between Judeo-Christian civilization and Satan. He told audiences that America was a, quote, Christian nation engaged in God's army against a spiritual enemy.
Our God is more powerful and is the victor in the end. So we need to remember that. Listen, I would say one thing about the whole issue of Islam. When the president says it's a religion of peace, he's made two serious mistakes, either unknowingly or wittingly in a deceptive way. And one is there's no history of peace within Islam, and two is it's not a religion. It's a totalitarian way of life with a religious component. That's the fundamental problem in America with dealing with Islam. We still treat it as if it's protected by the First Amendment.
But this is something that has become more mainstream. Nevertheless, American political culture has long tried to moralize or justify their wars, painting them as righteous endeavors against this sort of embodied evil.
Your daughters will be raped and your sons beheaded unless we stop Islam once and for all. We're done turning the other cheek. Remember, David didn't pray for Goliath. He killed them. America is a Christian nation, so those terrorist Muslims can f off to any of the 57 Muslim nations. There is only one true God, and that is the God of Israel.
Over decades, we've seen a civil religious framework that has taken shape to blend
The God of Israel. That's the only true God. It's the God of Israel. Where do you think she got that answer from? Where did she get that notion from? It was taught to her. It wasn't because she seen some miraculous spiritual deity or anything like that. Somebody told her that. Somebody told them that. Somebody told them that. And they read it in a book. Give me proof. That's why Trump said that al-Sadat don't like Israel. Now, the only true God is the God of Israel.
and patriotic ideals with biblical archetypes, all in order to reassure Americans that their violence was not ordinary violence. It was elevated violence. It's all justified by God.
I'm in Israel, and of course Hamas violated the peace deal. Now they're getting bombed. I get my popcorn ready. Let the fireworks begin.
And like I said, what has changed in the present is the intensity of this sacralization. In earlier conflicts, moral framing was often built up.
And we're supposed to believe that the Almighty, all-powerful, that created everything, like these people, these Jews, that are literally genociding a group of people that always, as far as I've heard, always been somewhat Orthodox, somewhat Oju. I mean, Oh, jeez. We're supposed to just take your word for it that the Jews is God's chosen people. We just supposed to take your word for it. Okay.
Gradually or applied retrospectively to justify sacrifices made. However, today the sacred narrative is laid down almost immediately. When a conflict begins, it's almost instantly packaged by Christian nationalist voices as existential, civilizational, and even prophetic. When children, unfortunately, start being bombed, the theology arrives to justify it, as before the public can fully even ask why a war is happening, who benefits, how many civilians are dying, or whether escalation could be stopped. A complete moral script is already in place.
We pray for the peace of Jerusalem and the many Christians in Iran that will now be free to worship you in spirit and in truth. Today we rejoice in the prophetic scriptures of Ezekiel revealing God's Operation Fury for the enemies of Israel in the near future.
Just to make sure we're caught up to speed here, Christian nationalism in the United States is a worldview that fuses American national identity with a particular vision of Christian mission. It asserts that America is chosen by God and has a divine role to play in history, often in tandem with the nation of Israel. This ideology has existed in various forms for a long time, but in this current era, it has become even more explicit, even more apocalyptic, and even more deeply intertwined with U.S. foreign policy.
President Trump has also been very consistent. Crazy regimes like Iran, hell-bent on prophetic Islamist delusions, cannot have nuclear weapons. It's common sense. Many have said it, but it takes guts to actually enforce it, and our president has guts.
And the shift from merely moralizing war to completely sanctifying it or treating it as a holy prophecy has become very visible during this whole U.S.-Israel conflict with Iran, as top American and Israeli leaders have openly used religious and apocalyptic language in order to justify military action.
These people, they always talking about God, Christianity, and and they have really actually convinced themselves that they are doing God's work. Oh boy. They really convinced themselves to think that it's okay. You are justified in killing children. You are justified in dropping bombs on the whole country. And these people really think that they're getting away with it. All those slave holders think that they got away with it because they live long lives while their slaves live to be 17, 18 years old, working themselves to death. They think that, oh, they was entrusted to do God's work, to make this a God country by enslaving people, making them work themselves to death. They really believe that. And they really think that they're going to get away with it.
Actions. For example, in late February 2026, just as hostilities with Iran began, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pointedly invoked the biblical command to, quote, remember what Amalek did to you.
אנחנו קראנו בפרשת השבוע, זכור את אשר עשה לך עמלק. אנחנו זוכרים ואנחנו פועלים. ואם למשטר האימים הזה יהיה נשק גרעיני, הם יאיימו על האנושות כולה. ובכן יצאנו כדי להרחיק גם את הסכנה הזאת, קודם כל מעצמנו, מעלינו. אבל אנחנו פועלים כאן, יחד עם ארצות הברית, בשם ולמען האנושות כולה.
In this reference to the Amalekites, that being an ancient enemy in the Hebrew Bible, whose memory the Israelites are told to blot out, was not neutral here. Netanyahu equated Iran's Islamist regime with Amalek, essentially framing Iran as a manifestation of absolute evil that must be utterly defeated. Netanyahu had used the same Amalek reference in 2023 when rallying troops against Hamas in Gaza. And American leaders under President Trump have also gone on to cast the war in spiritual terms. Mike Huckabee, a Baptist minister and longtime Christian Zionist who became U.S. ambassador to Israel in 2025, openly grounded his diplomacy in biblical prophecy In a widely discussed interview with Tucker Carlson, conducted in Israel and posted on February 2026, Huckabee agreed that it would be, quote, fine if Israel expanded to control essentially the entire Middle East because, quote, God gave Israel that land by covenant.
I think it says from the Nile to the Euphrates, which is, once again, basically the entire Middle East. So God gave that land to his people, the Jews, or he didn't. You're saying he did. What does that mean? Does Israel have the right to that land? Because you're appealing to Genesis.
Yeah.
You're saying that's the original deed.
It would be fine if they took it all.
Yes, the U.S. envoy to Jerusalem has publicly asserted that Israel has a biblical right to seize enormous swaths of neighboring.
Okay. So, of course, all these people is old. Okay. Just think about it. The next 100 years, none of us going to be here. I mean, maybe the little babies that's born. Are they still going to be fighting over this land 100 years from now? They really think that these people are going to sit back and let them take over their land that they didn't have for thousands of years because, it says it in the Bible. All these people that are being killed, just like Russia and Ukraine, all those people that are dying, being killed, being homeless. Because of what? We got to get some people with a brain to lead this world, since we have to have leaders. I remember this one man told me they have these wars because it's also a form of population control. Just think, if they did not have these wars, Civil War, World War I, World War II, Vietnam. I know so much stuff would be different. We all probably would be different because we probably would have different parents. It's because these leaders are making lifelong choices for us. They don't even know us. We don't know them. And they making these horrible lifelong choices for us. All those men that died, millions of people killed in these wars. And that means millions of kids that wasn't born. But they want to hoop and holler about an abortion, killing children, but they don't mind killing people every day. They don't mind that. That's that satisfies our lust because we can see it. We want to see it. We want to feel it. We can't see it and feel it when you have an abortion. It's not by our hands. So we really have to, if we want to live in a world, every year you hear the Christians talking about peace on earth, but to them, you have to kill millions of people to get that peace on earth. That is their interpretation.
Well, it's looking like we're in real trouble in the Middle East. This is the headline today. Trump's top general is looking for an off-ramp. You heard that correctly, off-ramp from the Iran war as U.S. military options remain limited. And We recently got reports on stockpile problems with munitions, with the missiles, right? We're basically running out, and we're running low on defenses. And what more can we do? I mean, can we bomb our way out of this? Probably not. Are we going to do a land invasion? That would be a disaster. Dan Kane looking for off-ramp. Let me read a little bit. You can hear it for yourself. Quote, Kane is looking for an off-ramp. Right there. So it says NeoCloud, colocation, and emergency AI intras, it looks like, or infra. I can see the different names of companies. Basically, the ones on the right look to be crypto miner kind of things, and maybe they're getting out of crypto and going into data centers and otherwise for AI. The ones in the middle are more like your traditional data center, because not everything necessarily is AI focused. And then the ones on the left are kind of more, all your new ones are like, hey, we're building just for AI. And they'll play some smoke and mirrors. I mean, literally in the chart, the smoke and mirrors are right there. It says SpaceX high, SpaceX low. So these are estimates, estimates between the high and the low. And so like they want to, oh, well, in a really optimistic world, look at all this money that SpaceX is going to have. But remember, most of their revenue is just due to a couple clients, because there's not that many people in this space. I think it's like Google and maybe should be Anthropic, should be the other one. So there's that.
For bigger and longer term considerations, BlackRock sought to raise debt financing for a metadata center, but there was one type of investor the asset management giant was trying to avoid, those looking for a quick profit. So it focused on real money accounts, pension funds, insurance funds, to avoid fast trading investors who can quickly tank a bond's secondary market performance. And so far the strategy looks to be working. Bloomberg's credit reporter, Tassos Vosos, is here to explain why. There is a lot happening. Basically, supply has exploded, and issuers have tried to reassure the market that
it's exactly that. I mean, we were here last month talking about how these bonds underperform in the secondary market because, frankly speaking, people are concerned. People are concerned that so much bonds are going to come into the market, they won't be able to absorb that many. And what banks are trying to do now, obviously, you cannot take away the AI buildup. That's the future. The market has actually agreed with that. So that has to be financed somehow. But what the banks are trying to do is trying to take away the risks out of the market as much as they can. As you mentioned, fast money accounts, those who like buy the bonds, sell them straight away for a quick profit. We've seen in previous months, they come to the market and the bond price tanks straight away. You have companies saying, yes, we're going to raise $25 billion today, but won't come back until the end of the year.
Here is the bond market for debt to build data centers. And all the big companies are doing it. We're talking about several times. Be it SpaceX, Google, Amazon, and otherwise. Again, they're issuing these things, and they're after the really big money, and I guess you could call it.
That's going to be a trouble. That's
one of the first slave ships that brought black.
We've seen data centers. It's a lot of data centers, a lot of AI. I use AI, and because it's right there in my face, you know, I'm kind of getting. It's good and it's bad, just like everything else. But when you start making it towards it's taking people jobs and making people more susceptible to fraud and really hurting them, that's pretty much where it's going. It's taking away people's creativity, jobs. It's making people really have crazy ideas.
People to the New World was named Jesus. White Christians used Bible verses and Bible stories to justify slavery. There was a time when white Christians wouldn't baptize black people because they weren't sure if it was okay to enslave Christians. They quickly changed their theology, baptized their black slaves, and forthrightly sent them back to the fields to work. 4, both black and white prosperity preachers have scammed millions of dollars from faithful black parishioners living in American slums. 5, it is an undeniable fact that Christianity has been a tool of oppression for black people all throughout the world. And yet today, Black Americans identify as Christians at a staggering 79%, higher than any other group in this country. So the question is, why are Black people still Christians? And while we're at it, I actually think there's a more pressing, more existential question that needs an answer. Does God hate Black people? In nearly every country, on every continent around the world, darker-skinned people are treated poorly. By nearly every measurable standard, so-called Black people are at the bottom of the social hierarchy everywhere. So much so that in majority Black countries like Haiti and Nigeria, skin lightening creams are wildly popular. Anything to gain some proximity to whiteness and some distance from Blackness. Africa is rich with natural resources, boundless human potential, unfathomable wisdom, and brilliant cultural traditions. And yet, colonial powers have pillaged, exploited, and divided nations and people in ways that are frankly irreparable, all without consequence. I mean, I don't know. You'd think that God would help us out a little bit. We've been through a lot, God. Maybe there's a Bible verse that we can look to. And the Lord will make you the head and not the tail. You shall be above only and not be beneath. Who is this verse about? Not only do Black people identify as Christians at a higher rate, half of Black Americans report attending church at least once a week. I was one of them. In fact, I was a pastor for a number of years. I've preached all over the country and world. I've given Bible studies. I've baptized folks. I have been in it, and these questions have been nagging me for a while. So in this...
That's another thing that keeps us down to religion. I was a Jehovah's Witness for 25 years. I mean, I was trying to be a Jehovah's Witness for 25 years, I might as well say, because it was a while before I finally got baptized. And I noticed that you cannot be Black and be a Jehovah's Witness. I found that out. Because they don't want you talking about slavery. They don't want you talking about their racist roots. Yeah, that is off limits. You are a Jehovah's Witness. And the way they have it set up, you can only go to the Kingdom Hall that's in your area. So a lot of the Kingdom Halls are practically all Black, and some are practically all white. And I seen it for myself how Black people act in Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah, they treat you bad if you are a Black person and you have humble means. Yeah. And I had this one sister tell me that she was practically like one or two Blacks in this congregation. She said that they would literally go out in the field service and they would send her off by herself. Because the neighborhood that they was going out in the field with was practically white. And also, I had this one woman tell me that she asked one of the witnesses, why is there only white people on the magazine? And she said that the answer was, well, because it's predominantly white people over here. So, in other words, they don't want to piss the white people off by putting a Black person on the watchtower or the awake, because they most likely will not take it if it's a Black person on there. And if you see a Black person on there, they're usually with another white person or is more than one Black on there. Because a lot of white people would not like to have a magazine with a Black face on it. That's religion for you.
This video, we're going to get some answers. I talked to a couple of people. One of them is my friend Claudia.
My name is Claudia Allen.
She is easily one of the most conscious people I know. She's well-read, tapped into history and literature, a person who is thinking about race, class, and power in very critical ways. But she's a preacher and a committed member.
There is no other people group on the face of the planet who has experienced the kind of suffering that is akin to the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ like Black and brown people. No other group.
Since she is well.
Okay. That's if you believe in Jesus. Okay, before I go, I want to read something because I look at it like this is our time. What we're going through. Every administration, every election has consequences that all of us, all around the world, not just here in America, have to suffer and deal with. And it's good for some people, but overall it's mostly bad because even when it's good for you, the bad could spill over on you. Okay, 1932, Franklin D. Roosevelt. The major events was the Great Depression. 1936, Hitler attacks Poland. 1939, World War II began. 1940, U.S. in World War II, 1941 to 1945. FDR dies April 12, 1945. 1945, Harriet S. Truman. World War II ends August 14, 1945. Cold War with USSR begins in 1946. The Marshall Plan gives aid to Europe. NATO is founded. Korean War starts June 25th, 1950. You see what the American people have had to deal with because of our leaders. People have had to suffer. These parents have had to see their kids go off to war. They have had to see their loved ones come back in body bags. So right now, what we're going through is horrible. We need to start thinking, why do we want to keep going through this? Our foreparents went through this. Now we're going through it. Do we want our children to keep going through this mess? Because nothing is I don't see anything getting better. All right, I'm going to end now. Thank you for listening. You all have a wonderful day. I'm going to come back and read some more of the major events